Happy Wednesday, everybody here, and welcome to our webinar for today. I'm your host, Brian Buckley, and I've got Kenneth Hunter here, and we'll go through introductions in just a moment. We've got a number of people that are still coming in as attendees, and there's always the balance between honoring the late people and making sure those that show up on time are not punished. I grew up with a dad who was early on time is late, and late is disrespectful of other people's time. So if anything, you get at least that out of the webinar, you get my dad's advice. So anyway, for those of you who are new to InHand Networks or newer to us, I want to give you just a quick reminder of who we are. When I come in and do branch trainings for the carriers or on potential new resellers, we teach one number in 3 words. And that one number is this, 3. InHand Networks is actually the 3rd largest industrial cellular router company in the world by volume. Think about that. 3rd largest in the world industrial cellular router company by volume. We have over 4 million active devices right now in the field, which lead to our 3 words, which are low, high, and full. Low means lower cost. So because of our volumes, we have the ability of coming in at lower cost. Doesn't mean cheap, just means very cost effective. And hopefully you're experiencing that, and you'll experience it today here on the webinar in just a moment. The high is highly reliable. Usually when you got something that's lower cost, it's usually going to be not working very well. You just hope you can get past that 6-month warranty, and problems start to happen. In this case right here, we have an under 1% failure rate. So we just don't have complications with our products. They're rock solid. Low, lower cost, high, highly reliable. And last is fully industrial and adaptable. So industrial meaning whether it's going to go into a kiosk or an ATM or it's a full in-vehicle gateway, every one of our products is fully industrial, which allows us to be fully adaptable. It can adapt in a whole bunch of different environments on that. So we're going to learn a lot more about specifically on the 5G side, which is a new area. For us as InHand Networks, we're traditionally an IoT, industrial IoT company, end-to-end play. We still have all those products. That's our legacy here. But due to demand and request from both carrier and channel, we have moved into the 5G side of the house, and hence this webinar today. So I'd like to introduce both of us. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Brian Buckley. I oversee the strategy along with Tom Gricius for carrier and channel here at InHand Networks, and usually in a city near you. I rarely am in Chicago, my motherland. When COVID had hit, and my wife had asked, so how do you like, being in Chicago all winter long? And I'm like, this place you live sucks. Like, why would you ever spend the whole winter here? Anyway, I digress. And then we've got our VP of sales here today, who's actually leading this side of the house for the webinar. I claim that he is more smarter, S-M-A-R-T-R, and this is Kenneth Hunter. So Ken, you want to do a quick introduction of your role?
Yeah, sure. Pleasure to meet you, everyone. My name is Kenneth Hunter. I'm the Vice President of Sales for the Americas. Again, most of my time, Buckley will tell you, is spent coordinating corporate resources, training, strategy, and then direction for the sales teams of both North and South America.
Excellent. Big fan of Ken, and huge help here, especially the knowledge that he brings. And that's where we're going to kind of drill in on 5G here. So the chat is available, so feel free to bring in your questions. I will moderate along the way with questions, comments, and snide remarks. So if you can help with any of those 3, bring it on. We want to make sure that this is moving. Our masteryable plan is 45 minutes here today. We want to respect your time. And if questions continue on that, happy to be able to do that. We will send out a recording of this as well, whether you're listening to it live and want the recording for somebody else, or you hear this as a recording. We're glad you joined us here today. So Ken, why don't you pull up the presentation? We'll talk about our table of contents here, where we are headed, and then we will jump in. Get in and out, nobody gets hurt.
Certainly. There you go, Brian.
Perfect. There's a visual of the suspects, which you have already seen on that side right there in our roles. If you go to the next slide, Ken, we'll talk about where we're headed here. And hopefully not downhill quick. So we want to be really clear. We're going to just give too much information on this, but enough that makes it worthwhile. So here are 4 specific topics that we're going to cover. The challenges of the business internet and the aspects of that. Next, we're going to dive into 5G business internet solutions. What are the options that are out there, and how can InHand help? We're going to get specific and very granular on solution applications. And then we're going to finish up with solution price, policy, and roadmap here at InHand Networks on that. So we're going to dive specifically in on this first one here. Ken, why don't you kick us off here on the challenges of business internet?
Certainly. Thank you, Brian. So challenges of business internet. This is not a new topic. This has been around a while. Businesses using the internet for operations, internal, external. It's not a new concept. InHand, why are you telling me about this? Well, just to start off, the reason why you're getting the spiel from InHand is because 5G being introduced into business internet, it changes things. And I'll talk a little bit about how 5G is impacting, our industries abroad, and then why that applies and makes a difference when you talk about, business internet as a whole and how that can help solve and bring solution into, the business internet space. So I love this statement in this slide. 4G changes our life. I think we all remember the days when, LTE, really opened up applications. It opened up the ability on an individual level and on business level to be able to do many things over the internet. It changed a lot, but 5G changes our society. Okay. So the big thing here is in the old days, pre-LTE, most of the stuff you want to do at a business level for operations and network operations, you had to go with an internet service provider like a cable company. It was the only way you're going to be able to provide the throughput needed. It's the only way you're going to get the latencies that you need to be able to, manage all the different distributed network needs. And then when LTE came along, we started seeing out-of-band management to help, enable people to troubleshoot network equipment from these distributed networks. We started seeing failover solutions for business internet. Mostly people who said, well, if my internet goes down, I need my credit card readers to keep, moving, or I want to have the ability to maybe remotely access something, some type of terminal or kiosk and do some remote troubleshooting, right? But now that 5G has come out, even at the sub-6 level, the speeds, the throughput, the coverage, the density, per square mile that you're getting out of 5G really brings it up to the positioning that used to you could only get from the cable networking side. So in the past, where LTE would have been a little bit of a struggle for a lot of the branch or business offices, SMB type needs for their actual network operations, now 5G brings it up to par. So all right, Ken, you told me about how 5G is impacting the business internet, fixed wireless, this type of space. And tell me about the challenges. So with 5G, with fiber, with all this, higher speed internet, lower latency stuff, we're seeing mostly three major trends, which is more digital applications. So whether it be, different software applications that are running on the edge, people are needing more speed, more bandwidth, they're deploying AI on the edge. They're doing so many more things today in their offices that really, it's consuming more and more bandwidth. So what could have got by in the old days on, 5 megabytes per second, maybe, or 50 tops, the consumption is going up significantly. And that's a major driver, in business internet and, branch. Cloud service is key. This is the second big trend. Even large scale companies like IBM and others who have large network infrastructure, they're still utilizing cloud. They're utilizing cloud for many of their basic office operations, 365, Oracle databases. Everything is still going on the cloud, even with companies that have full capacity to deploy a complex enterprise network. So this is a driving factor, and it adds a lot of simplicities when it comes to deployment and scale. And then last, there's a lot more branches today than there used to be, and they continue to grow and expand. Again, as we deploy out more branches, as people expand, their companies expand, their businesses expand, right? It can create a much more complex distributed network. And again, by having, digital applications and cloud, there's a lot to factor and take into. So these are some of the major challenges and things that a lot of small business owners or branch offices have to deal with on a network operations standpoint. So the challenge is facing the branch, right? So we talked about a high level of generality, but what about, Ken, let's get down to brass tacks. What do they care about? If I'm an IT manager of a branch or a small business, what do I care about? What are my specific challenges? Okay, the specific challenges is difficulty of deployment. If you're an IT manager for a network of branches, deploying new IT equipment to enable a new branch or to make changes at a branch, it tends to be very low efficiency. If you're doing a traditional network rollout, the launch periods are always long. They're usually full of bugs and issues, a lot of travel back and forth, really in the past, the major ways to deal with it is, well, hire more IT people, right? Difficulty for network operations, my background, I actually started in the industries as a network engineer. So, using command line interface with Cisco for configuring switches and routers, it's kind of bread and butter. It's, but at the same time, when you talk about expanding your network teams or your operations and stuff, having to have more people trained to use command line, more actual, operations that require someone inputting codes and commands, especially for newer people, it can be very inefficient and very error prone, which obviously has drastic impacts on an enterprise type network. And again, it's the more complexity you add, right now we're in a labor shortage, getting more experienced people, it takes more time, it takes more resources. So again, the ability to manage your network, to keep visibility on the actual, not just for deployments, but the actual traffic flow, the packets, where they're moving, how they're moving, managing your bandwidth. We were talking about all the complexities of how everything uses more bandwidth today and how you balance that between your operations, for internal versus external. And of course, limited access of experience, high definition video conferencing, large file transfers, whether it be on the cloud or still on, a corporate network. These are all challenges that, face the branches. Okay. The second topic.
No, man, I paused on you right there. I did the Zoom rookie mistake of being on mute here. Imagine that working from home. So
okay. We still love you, Brian.
I appreciate that. We do have some questions coming in, which was causing my diversion here. But let's go ahead before we hit some of those questions. Let's kind of dive into the cloud managed networking solution side of 5G, Ken.
Sure, certainly. So for InHand's 5G cloud managed network solution, that's a mouthful, but hey, that's probably the best way to describe it. InHand's providing a more encompassing solution than what we traditionally do. Traditionally, we provide, best in class hardware that you deploy it out, it doesn't break, and then you find it years later and you're like, wow, this thing's still working, I don't even remember when I deploy it. But in this situation, we're trying to bring more to ease some of these complexities for branch SMB, and we're doing that through a cloud-centric solution that focuses on lifecycle management and daily operations, network visibility. And when I say network visibility, not just seeing what's online, what's offline, but a deeper dive in inspecting the packets of stuff that's actually moving on the network, bandwidth, speeds, how you want to balance and manage those, not just QoS. More about reserving bandwidth specifically for applications when they're needed, right? And if they're not being used, then fine, don't use it. And then, application insights, like getting down for anyone who's worked with LTE, or 5G or the cellular network in general, it's a little bit different than fiber or traditional cable ISPs where you just got to have a drop, right? You got to take into account not just one type of signal strength, but you need to get down in depth, right? Regarding your site surveys, where it's located at, what are the coverages, what are all the tools that you'll need to support something that's relying on a wireless network. And then, of course, that's from the cloud side of things. We also have the hardware side, us being a hardware company, no surprises there, and how the hardware interacts with the platform to be, deployed in a zero-touch manner, and how it enables some of the feature sets to, really help solve some of these branch challenges. So, Ken, what are the solution values, right? So the three things that we wanted to focus on, because we can't solve everything. As much as I would like to roll out a solution, a one-stop shop that fixes all network operations issues at the enterprise and small business level, it doesn't happen. So For us, where we wanted to devote our resources and our R&D and assets was focused particularly on these three things. So one, the ultimate user experience, user access experience. So we wanted to focus on, transmission optimization. So, encryption. We wanted to focus on improving security while also improving, efficient movement of data. So what does that mean? For those of us from an IT background, we always know the great challenges in life is how do you get enough security, but without blocking everyone off the network, versus how do you give everyone ease of access without leaving yourself very vulnerable. So that's the first factor of what we wanted to focus on with this solution. The second factor, we want to reduce IT hardware input costs. And that's where we bring in a lot of the SD-WAN features that we're launching with this solution that are platform centric. And, it's not just on reducing the amount of hardware you have to deploy as far as traditional IT infrastructure, but also the number of personnel you need to manage it. We want to help enable an IT manager to be able to extend the percentage of network that he can deploy and manage without actually having to go fight in budgeting to get a much larger team. Right? We want to give a greater efficiency. And then visualization for ease, deployment, operation, maintenance. So again, and this is something common from our IoT background that, again, it still applies within this branch, this business internet fixed wireless industry. And that's the ability to, make the deployments easy and simple because that saves time and money, to simplify operations. So that way you can remove complexities and again, add more efficiency and provide different methods of improved maintenance, whether it be just through alarming, scheduling, actual planning, or whether it be through, the ability to access and touch stuff when there might be an issue. All right, so from InHand, you knew it was going to happen. We're a hardware company. We're going to talk about hardware just for a minute because that is one piece of this solution. So one-stop IT hardware shop. Again, for right now, we're providing what we call the Edge Router series, and it's focused on multiple uplinks because again, when you get in a branch, you might have one internet source or, for critical operations, you might want to have multiple sources. And that's not just for a failover application, but again, to manage where the traffic goes, right? And this gets into some SD-WAN, but, you might want to say, okay, critical traffic goes out my 5G pipe, but, general slow non-priority stuff, maybe downloading some large file from the internet, I might want to keep that on the ISP side of the house and send it out cable, right? And of course, with that, you still want to have the ability to fail over or to load balance between those two networks, right? Routing and switching, of course, our products, multiple LAN, multiple WAN. Again, you can have more than one ISP, whether it's cellular or physical hardware, it's all an open option. Again, the aspects of SD-WAN, we focus on smart routing, site-to-site VPN, and traffic shaping. That's kind of what we would call our bread and butter. And then, of course, VPNs and security. So here's a picture of the culprit itself, the ER8R5. It's our Edge Router series, which is focused specifically on business internet and fixed wireless. It's a branch type router. Overall, it's 5G sub 6, and with that, it has a fallback on a Cat 20. So even if you deploy an area where 5G performance is low or hasn't quite made it there yet, you still have the ability to use a very high speed LTE. And for those I know who are going to ask, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. This model does currently the module inside supports C-band. Again, I'll touch more on when that's coming, the certifications in process. So just go ahead and answer that question before it comes up. Interfaces, the theme of this is gigabyte, gigabyte, gigabyte. So all Ethernets are, 1 gigabit per second speed, because we're talking about 5G, we're talking about plugging into cable ISPs. We want to have the ability to match the pipe that's coming into it. Same with the Wi-Fi, gigabyte Wi-Fi. And of course, dual SIM for failover. And again, it's most of the standard features you'd find on any of our industrial hardware. Okay, what about the cloud platform? So the InCloud is focused on unified management, right? So GUI configuration, like I talked about before, you don't have to dig in, you don't have to teach people command line, you don't have to worry about errors that are made from junior people using command line. So we got that. Centralized management, manage all your hardware, all your equipment, and manage the stuff connected to it all from one single platform. There's no need to have one platform for managing the routers, one platform for managing the equipment connected to it. It's a one-stop shop for network operations. Alarm and diagnostic tools, these are configurable on the alarm side, so you can set the alarms you care about or that actually matter to your network team. Also, we did add some tools in there such as TCP/TOM, traceroute, ICMP, built into the platform, so you don't have to say, okay, well, I need to pull the TCP records, so I'm going to have to go download, Wireshark, X, Y, or Z. I need to download another tool. No, just one-stop shop. Network visibility, again, you'll see when I take you guys through a demonstration at the end. There are lots of dashboards. There are lots of configurable metrics, all based on what you want to check and look at. And then, of course, Network Insight, we've added more compared to our previous platforms, again, that are focused on providing more insight to a lot more than just like RSSI for, your signal strength. We dig into 5 different factors and 5 different types of signal. So that way you can really gauge not just signal strength, but what is the quality of the signal you're getting in the area. And then, of course, we did add in some additional features to the platform to focus on, delay, latency, jitter, and then packet loss. So other features. So Ken, you're telling me about a platform, device management. I got it, right? I want to see what's up and see what's down. And you're telling me that there's a little more depth in regards to, what I can look at regarding signal and other stuff. What other stuff comes with this? Well, again, one of the aspects of SD-WAN is the ability to network and connect things together. So we'll get into the SD-WAN centric part of it, but, as I mentioned before, remote maintenance channels is a big thing for us. So, with our device management platform, you can remotely access our routers. That's great and all, yes. But sometimes engineers, technicians, they want to be able to access equipment that's actually connected in through the network. So, for us, we call it in-connector, but it enables you to simply create an open VPN just through the GUI on our cloud platform. You go in, you assign them IP addresses, you assign your endpoint, and then the platform will build your tunnels and your VPNs through to the devices. So if you want to remotely access, say, an IP camera, but you don't want to get a public static IP address, this is one method to do that, right? If you, again, if you want to access any type of VoIP phones, for troubleshooting or maintenance or out-of-band management, it's here, it's easy. You don't need to hire a bunch of engineers that understand OpenVPN. It's very simple to use. Now, regarding more of not so much maintenance, but more about connecting places, branches, home offices, right? For this type of stuff, we do have an SD-WAN, we call it overlay, but it allows you to essentially create a VPN between the different branches in a hub spoke topology. And I mean, with that solution, it allows the home office to easily access, say, a local shared drive at the headquarters. But again, as I said, it's very simple and easy to use. You don't need a lot of complexity to do it. And I'll show you guys a little bit more when we get into the demonstration. And another nice thing about this is it showcases all the different WAN interfaces that are being used and how they're piping and moving data. All right, smart networking policies. So link backup, we knew that was going to be there. Failover is critical for IoT, it's critical for branch. Again, failing between different WANs, between different interfaces, Wi-Fi, cellular, Ethernet, that's there. Failing between different cellulars, that's there. For this product, we've added a lot more functionality for load balancing between, pushing different applications and different stuff out between the different WANs so you can prioritize what you need. Smart routing allows us to analyze the jitter and packet loss, and then to kind of adjust and reserve bandwidth and assign bandwidth and restrict bandwidth, right? Based on certain applications, protocols, sources, destination IPs, etc. And then, of course, for the traffic shaping, more QoS options and better port forwarding. Also, we added a mobile app. So the mobile app, I would say, it's not as complex or configurable in detail as the web platform, but it will show you everything that's on the web platform. as far as, what's up, what's down. It focuses more on a shorter time frame, such as, the default is 7 days for usages, alerts, stuff like that, right? Whereas on the platform, you can configure, 7 days, 30 days, a year, whatever your heart's desire. So it's more about on-the-go operations. Also, another nice feature of the platform on the mobile app is the ability to get your equipment in, scan it with a QR code on the app, and not only will that load it into your platform and all the details and stuff so you don't have to, but you can also use the configuration on the app to actually locally configure the device. You don't actually have to plug in and touch it, right? If you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait for the platform to push a config down, to the group it's assigned, you could just do a configuration change right there on your mobile phone. Interface data flow monitoring, we talked about that, multidimensional data analysis. Again, the same dashboards you're going to get on the platform. And of course, alerts, right? Because if you have an app, you can get them maybe quicker than, say, on your email.
All right, Ken, real quick, we had some questions and Snyder marks that have come in. One of the questions was, is there ability of getting this presentation? The answer is yes, and a couple people have sent me their email addresses, so we'll make sure to get that out to you in a PDF form. So that's the answer. And if you also would like a copy of that, at, of course, no additional charge. I know we give here at InHand Networks. Feel free to send me your email address in the chat. Happy to do that. One Snyder mark was get it together, Buckley, which I completely deserved on that. So, Ken, let's go to the second half here on the third one we want to cover is cloud managed networking solution applications. Let's get granular on some of the applications that are going in this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. So yeah, I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but this time we'll go a little more in and talk about some of the applications and how things are being used in these solutions. So again, the solution we're focused, it's in the name, it's business internet, it's branch. It's branch, it's branch, it's branch. And we look at branch in two ways. Retail branches that are selling you stuff, pop-up stores, C-stores, supermarkets, grocery stores, retail. And then enterprise, which would be like the office I'm in here, right? Purely business operations, tied back to a large corporate network that shares resources or redirects and provides security and functionality. And within the branch, enterprise branch, I would also consider small office and home office, because I know ever since COVID, hybrid work or full remote work has become a very large thing in this country. So retail branch, right? What's in a retail branch that people care about? What are the things that they're connecting? Ken, you've talked about business internet. We all know having internet's all fine and dandy, but what's being tied into this stuff? So again, when we talk about retail, I like to think about supermarkets because everyone goes to a supermarket unless you do Amazon deliveries for your food every day. It's something we can all relate to, right? So kiosk, checkout kiosk. Post machines, whether it's at a kiosk, whether it's at a register, right? If you can't take credit card transactions, good luck making money for the day. I know we all love cash, and I know our friends in the ATM space would love to enable more cash, but in reality, we all know that the majority of the transactions going on in a grocery store is probably happening with some type of debit or credit card. Kiosks for sharing information, right? Also kiosks for selling stuff. There's many third parties that love to just jump and tie into the networks at our Targets, at our Walmarts, at all of our different, stores, count your coins here, get your lottery tickets there. All this stuff needs networking. And we all know that those kiosk companies, love to leverage the local resources if possible. Digital terminals, wired scanning, wireless scanning, inventory management systems, ordering systems. There's so many different IT focused things that all have a certain level of priority or queue. So again, if Bob wants to look at a kiosk and find out what's the latest and the greatest sale, I would say that's probably important for his shopping experience. But if that traffic is being prioritized or slowing down my credit card transactions, it's probably going to be a bad day for business. So, what are these challenges of retail chain? Network continuity cannot be guaranteed. We just talked about all of the stuff that's in there that's either, part of the retail chain, part of their equipment that's going in to support it, part of partners and leased and contract spaces for additional, assets and equipment. The large number of branches, they're distributed. They're when you get into, corporate management of resources for branch and franchise, they're still tying back into a network in some form or fashion, pushing, different advertisements. For example, another retail chain like McDonald's, their McDonald's and Starbucks, they will be getting, new advertisements to put on their digital signage in and out of their stores, right? So these are all pieces that you can't guarantee everything's up. So, it really leaves you with the choice of prioritizing, or how can you expand your bandwidth to get as much as possible. Complex IT operations and maintenance. Okay, we all know that deploying an IT network does not mean that it's a one and done, right? You put it up, you never configure it again, you never do anything for security, you never expand it, you never touch it again, right? No, it doesn't work that way. And again, lack of IT professionals in branches, especially when you get into the smaller branches and franchises, you're not going to have an IT guy at every store or every branch, right? There's going to be a guy or a team depending on the size of the small and medium business. And, anytime you need to make a change or be troubleshooted or have anything to do with your network, you're going to a guy who's sharing and working on many different places. Limited network visibility and tedious fault diagnostics. So it's probably a rare instance that anyone has ever said, I go into my branch, and the internet, the bandwidth, the speed is amazing. Still waiting for the day when I hear or see that. And again, a lot of that comes from network visibility. The network engineers, the system admins, right? Their ability to know what's going on, what traffic is moving, where it's moving, how it's moving. The absence of visibility for that causes inefficiencies that we all feel every day. And when there's an issue, the ability to track down and fix the issue, is usually not the most painless thing. And of course, difficult maintenance on distributed kiosks. We put this in here because, again, ever since COVID-19, not only have we seen a lot of work from home, but we've seen a lot of unattended stuff, like I mentioned in the grocery store, and used to in the old days, you go to a grocery store and there's 8 or 10 cash registers, right? And you got a person at each one of them. Now you go and maybe there's 3, and then there's one big bank of nothing but self-checkout kiosk with one attendant. Right. And I guarantee you that those systems are heavily reliant upon the IT networks for everything they do. So the solution for InHand, again, is we bring in the 4 aspects here that I've lightly touched on before. But again, a hybrid WAN devices. Again, if you're not getting enough bandwidth, bring in more bandwidth, right? Utilize 5G. It's one of the core themes of the webinar. Bring in more bandwidth. Split and move the traffic amongst different WANs so that way you can prioritize and manage and plan for how to manage your bandwidth, right? How to keep it more efficient. Our cloud management keeps it in one single place. So that way the IT engineers, they don't need to go to multiple platforms. And again, it makes it easy to manage because it's all central. And then network visibility is going to help improve the ability of engineers to fix problems quickly and also to make sure that they don't happen again. Because we all know, as much as we love in IT support, have you tried unplugging the power and plugging it back in? It works many a time, but you don't know what caused the issue, which guess what that means? It's probably coming back in the future and more times than you would like. And then our cloud connector, provides the IT engineers the ability to reach out to their terminals, to reach out to specific end devices tunneling through the router with an open VPN, but without all the complexities of also having to manage their own open VPN server and clients. Other stuff, enterprise branches, hybrid work has probably been the biggest spoke in the wheel because, again, enterprise branches, SMB has been out, it's been there for a long time. But again, a lot of hybrid work I'd like to mention is a big thing that's changing in this industry. Some companies are providing networks for people, and then some companies are saying use your own network, but you have to use a VPN to touch into our network. That adds complexity for network management. It adds complexities for security. It adds complexity for network operations. I mean, keeping things patched, keeping things up to date, making sure people are following their procedures. I mean, it is a network engineer's worst nightmare. So again, for InHand, our focus is to provide, again, hardware and platform. So that way, whether it be in a branch office utilizing two forms of WAN, it can still manage traffic. It can still be uninterrupted and not have your operations go down. The ability for those home offices, to direct the traffic to be directed over to corporate network that's only for work, that it's not being wasted by, an employee searching things on Google or things unwork related. It's about improving the security by ensuring that you have simple and easy VPNs to deploy and maintain, and it's the ability to understand more about the network traffic and how the network operates differently between your branch offices, your headquarters, and also your small office and homes.
And rounding the track here, finishing up, Ken, we've just a handful of people had asked again for the presentation. They gave me their email addresses, and we'll make sure that those are sent to you. But finishing up here on the fourth quarter, solution price policy and roadmap. I know that's one question that is asked often of us. Exactly what does our roadmap look like as far as future products? What's in the pricing that we're looking at of the ER805 along with the cloud platform that we have. So Ken, if you can dive down a little bit on that as we finish up this webinar.
Certainly, no problem, Brian. So for this InCloud InHand business internet fixed wireless solution, obviously there's a hardware cost, right? You got to buy hardware. That's how we make our money. That's how we feed Brian, right? And we all know you don't want to see Brian hungry.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Duly noted. So with that said, also with this new platform, it is a paid service. It's a two-tiered service, and I can tell you, I've used a lot of platforms in the past. Again, my background comes from being a network engineer, okay, before I decided to jump on the sales side of things and dabble in management. And I will tell you that having a platform that's centric and focused on more of an enterprise style network management, it makes the difference, okay? If this is your main pipe for your branch, you need a good platform for it. Now, we don't brick hardware and say, well, if you don't buy platform, you can't have working hardware. At InHand, we don't believe in that. We're a hardware manufacturer. It's how we're born. It's how we're raised. It's how we go, okay? So again, you can still buy the equipment without the platform, but I'm telling you, if you use it, you'll love it, and you'll wonder why you never used it before, okay? With that said, we have a standard policy right now. We're finalizing on the price, but the MSRP is going to be sub $50. Somewhere between the $30 to $50 range is what we're seeing right now. And that's for an annual license. And then that covers the majority of the platform features. We do also have a professional policy license that's coming out. And that one will be more centric on the ability to easily provide VPNs, okay? So if you're deploying this solution for business internet, but you're a single store and you don't need a VPN, right? Then, you can go with the standard policy. But if you're networking multiple branches, again, the amount of resources that you'll save by using, the SD-WAN overlay to build your VPN connections and to simply create a unified network between your different branches, and the ability to, have deep packet inspections. Trust me, it'll be worth every last penny. And this one, again, will be somewhere between the $200 to $250 range per year for the hardware license. And again, it includes the standard license. So you get everything that's in the standard license, but you also get the additional features. And, if you're like, well, I want to try it, I've never, I don't know if this is a good fit for me. For right now, we're doing free evaluation accounts through 2022. So, and of course, at InHand, we always have opportunities for volume and feature set discounts available as well. So try it out, use it. I guarantee you'll love it. Now, Brian mentioned about the roadmap as well. So we've got the platform. I put the platform on here because we will continue to be developing more feature sets for it. It's not a once and done, okay, we built the last feature for the InCloud. We have nothing more. No, we will continue to define and put more stuff and more features on it, and probably a lot more additional security features will be coming in the future, more along the lines of either intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, just additional resources to help branches with security, and then additional stuff to help them with, software prioritization and different things like that. The 805 is on here. That's our product. It's available today. It's T-Mobile certified. The Verizon certification is literally in the last stages of ODI. I'd expect us to get a letter within the next 7 days. So it's practically done. And then for those who live and breathe on AT&T, I believe we'll have that within the next 4 to 5 days as well, including a FirstNet certification. So just a FYI. And then the newest product, which isn't available yet, I'm giving you guys kind of a coming soon Q3 timeframe. We do have an outdoor unit, ODU adapter for 5G. So this is a newer product. I'm giving you guys a showcase here because, again, it is centric and focused on business internet. Many people have IT resources that are already in place at their branch. They have an IT closet, right? They have an IT manager. They have Cisco switches, Cisco routers. They have Ubiquiti APs. They already have a full infrastructure deployed, but they want 5G. They want to cut the cord with their cable provider, or they want to have an additional bandwidth to manage their traffic and to push stuff out. Okay. So this product is something, again, it's coming soon. You can see the feature set on. I'm not going to read it to you. It's there, and just a little more of what it looks like. And again, it's not a full-fledged router. That's why we call it, a 5G adapter. So you're still going to want to plug it into something. It's not required proprietary. You don't have to be like, well, Ken, if I buy this, does that mean I have to buy an ER805 to control it, or I need to buy a specific end router or something? No, just, again, it's a WAN source. Think of it like your cable internet provider. Is it going to be decked out with all the features of the 805? No, but you can plug it into whatever infrastructure and resources you have. Just, outdoor model, wall mount, pole mount will come with it, both. A PoE injector. So like I said, bring your waterproof Ethernet down out the bottom, bring it in through the same place the cable provider brings in their fiber or their cable, and then drop it right into your IT infrastructure. With that said, I think we're still almost on schedule. I'll give just a very short demonstration of our platform. Brian, if that's okay with everyone.
Absolutely. Let me just address a couple of the questions that came through, Ken.
Sure.
Well, first of all, we did get official confirmation from Godwin, our FAE, that the AT&T side of the 805 is officially certified, and of course, it happened right after a conversation Godwin had with you. So AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, right there. If it's not completely done, it is in very, very close to that, but AT&T is completely done. Two specific questions, Ken. One is, does the 5G ODU adapter support millimeter wave?
No, currently right now we're not focused on millimeter wave. Again, I'm not a carrier person, so I'm not going to speak to people's networks, but I know that the deployment of millimeter wave is pretty limited. So we're focused on big and broad. So sub-6, and also the module side, it supports C-band as well. So, as we get it certified, it will be certified on C-band too. So think of sub-6 and then the mid-range of sub-6.
And one other question, then you can go through the demo for a moment on our cloud. This is from Ben. Will an end user be able to remote into the IR805, actually it's ER805, without the cloud subscription? Meaning, will they be able to continue to configure the device locally and remotely?
Yeah, actually, like I said, we're not a Meraki. We don't believe in bricking stuff because we kind of start with hardware. So if you want to configure the device locally without the InCloud Manager, you most certainly can. The functionality of the router is not going to die on the vine, okay? You can still plug in and configure it just like you would any other piece of hardware. That will never stop working. Number two, can you do it remotely? Certainly. Again, the router supports multiple VPN protocols. It supports HTTPS and most of your standard remote management, protocol and feature sets. So, if you have an IT staff and you say, I don't need InCloud, I'll just save the money and use my IT staff. You can establish an an SSL or an SSH connection, you can create your own VPN and then tie it, to your own software to push out stuff. All those features are still there. There's just no InHand platform that's free to manage it.
One of the questions too is from Derek asking, is the device opened to where we can develop our own device management platform?
So for developing your own device management platform, all of our equipment has open APIs. So I will double check with my team. To my understanding, that shouldn't have changed with this product. So again, if you want to have your own private network and use API, to call in and request stuff, you could still do that.
And another question here, will the IR series be updated to 5G? Very good question, Jeff.
Yeah, so the IR series will get an upgrade to 5G. I just haven't been given the timeline on that yet. I haven't seen in the roadmap at what point. I know that the centric focus was for the business internet, and then the in-router series would end up getting a 5G upgrade. But again, Internet of Things for higher data speeds had not been as much of a priority. I would say before the in-router series gets a 5G device, the in-vehicle gateway will finish its 5G cert.
And the questions just keep on coming, which is great. Is the device, this came from Steve, is the device available for public sector?
Steve, could you define that a little more?
It's
kind of a broad. It's a little bit of a broad topic, Steve. I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, I'll let him type that in. And why don't you go ahead and give a sneak peek here, just for sake of time, Ken, on the software, and then once we get a little more detail from Steve and others. Oh, here it is. Way to be on the spot here, Steve. Is it in SLED or FED contracts?
No, I mean, for right now, I'm not. I don't believe it's been certified for any type of federal contracting. If that's what you meant by in the public sector.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for that. If there's more detail on that, and of course, we know you, so feel free to reach out to us individually if you want to drill down or help out. Great question, though.
Yeah. All right. With that said, while the questions keep flowing in, I'll just log in and give you guys a little bit of a demonstration of the platform so you can see some of it. And again, feel free to still keep dumping questions. We'll dump them on Brian to answer.
And this is extra.
You can do it.
This is extra innings. We're getting free baseball here, kids, by getting the example of the free InCloud Manager.
This very short and I'll keep this very short and concise just to be respectful of everyone's time. So as you can see, the device manager, you have your overview, which focuses on, I'm a network engineer. I walk in at the beginning of the day and I need to check and see what's going on in my network. Total number of devices, recent alerts, right? Connection statuses. Did the configurations I tell it to implement, did they happen as scheduled? Did any of them fail? Firmware, same thing. What is my distribution of, what type of WAN? Am I load balancing on everything? Am I using Wi-Fi, cellular, Ethernet? Like how is my network distributed? And then of course, right now, this is kind of redundant because we only have the 805 for the platform. But, as we add more devices to the Edge series, you'll be able to see your distribution of devices. Again, what else is critical to a network engineer? What are my top 10 offlines when, you can break it down in a very quick view between today, yesterday, 7 days and 30 days. So, and then select on the different devices to see when and where the outages were and occurred. Also, your alerts are configurable. We'll get to those in just a minute. So you can go through and see what type of alerts were triggered and when, and then what are the type of alerts you're seeing. So that way you can focus in on specific issues. Also, on this same overview, you can pull up your data overages, or I shouldn't say overages. I hope no one's using over their data limits, but I mean, for me, I have been burning through a lot of data on these devices on my account. In the gigabyte levels, but you can see my top usages, and then also you can see based on the time frames, what days those were being used, and then what devices, and then also what type of interface, right? As you can see, most of mine was being used over Wi-Fi, but I did have some cellular from where I was doing load balancing. Your uplink statuses from your WANs of all your devices, which ones are up and down, your Wi-Fi's, your cellulars, your Ethernets, are any of them been disabled or disconnected? their latencies, their speeds and throughputs, and of course your map, right? So as you can see, we're zoomed out to Atlanta, but if you come over here, you'll see there's 3 devices, one being down here at my home, and then 2 being up here around the office area. Additionally, I'm going to touch on just a few more because I want to keep this very, very clear and concise. Nice new features added compared to like our device manager and others. You can select your different devices, and then from now on, if you need firmware, you just get it from the platform. No more waiting for someone to email you back, or no more waiting to find out what's different about a firmware. Simply go into the platform, select the device, and then you can pull up. InHand loads all of the newest firmwares, and we also provide change logs. So you can see what new features were added, what bugs were fixed, what were the issues, right? And then you can either upgrade it, or then you can button schedule it out to a date and a time, and it'll implement for you. Again, configurations. We changed the configuration instead of just a config file where you have more of a GUI. Just like I mentioned earlier, we want to make things simpler, faster, easier to use. And then additionally, if you wanted to, for example, take and do in batch, you could pull one from a single device that you configured, and you can push it to other devices or into entire groups. Remote access has always been the same as it was before. It pulls up a simple GUI and then pulls up the device, you log into it. Again, general information, commands, reboots, and a very nice feature that I do love, because doing a factory restore on a hardware is always fun, to say the least, but here you can do it from a software standpoint. Going into the devices, you can see that graphically we provide a lot more things to clearly see what's happening at the router. So you can see each of the interfaces, what network they're on, what are their settings, is anything connected, are they disabled? And then what are your different WAN sources and how are they set up and configured? When you scroll down on device, you can see actually, what are the WANs, what are the priorities, what are the speeds? And actually, just to provide a little more clarity on that one, I'll use the one setting on my desk here. As you can see here, I've got both of them running, so I'm actually doing load balancing between the two. And then you can see, the different signal strengths and the carriers and what's being used, and then pull up the connection history. Data usage focused on device, it starts at an hourly rate, and then you can change between your different interfaces. And then again, you can do daily, monthly, whatever you actually want to look at and analyze. And then a nice new feature that we've added is the ability, as I mentioned earlier, to look at multiple different types of cellular quality, signal strength, so that way you can get a much better understanding of, the network in the area. And then of course your clients and devices, how much data they're using, what are their speeds, how long have they been up. And then again, this equipment doesn't have GPSs on it, but it does do base station calculations. So you can get a rough eyeball of where your equipment's sitting at. Now, moving back to the network side, here's the end connector, as we mentioned before. You simply create a device, add it, and then you add devices, which would be your ER805s. So you would select it here, for example. And then you could either give it an automatic subnet, or then you could manually configure it. And then you would add your endpoints. So this could more or less be, for example, I have an FTP located here. So I could then add the FTP, and now I'd be able to go tunnel through my router into my FTP, right? To then access information. And then for each of the users, because again, you're not always going to be connected to the router, you would download OpenVPN, because that's the standard here, and you would enable that. And then once it's enabled, you would download this profile and load it into that. And that gives me my security certificate. So then I can, wherever I have my certificate, I can log into the private network and access, for example, my FTP. So for those of you who are familiar with device or with our InHand InConnect, it's the same feature, but it's actually built into the InCloud platform. And unlike InConnect, which has a data charge for VPN throughput, this is included in the professional license. The other aspect we have is if you don't want to use InConnect, or if you want to set up more of a traditional network infrastructure, you could use an SD-WAN overlay. And again, this allows you to simply, create hub and spokes. There is one requirement though for the hub. You will actually have to have some type of either public static or public dynamic or private static address. So that way it can build the tunnels as a server. And then you just add your devices and make sure that they do not have conflicting subnets. Once you've done that, you hit enter, and then boom, you have your SD-WAN overlay or your VPN network. And then for many of these devices, instead of having to, turn on an open VPN and use a virtual IP address to access a specific device, instead, if I am in my US headquarters and I want to access something at my house, for example, my home office, all I need to do is know what the regular address is because it's on the 2 network. So I could go into my browser and put 192.168.2.8 and then pull up my FTP without having to open, an open VPN tunnel or any of that. This is still built around VPN technology, but it's more about allowing branches to configure based on subnets rather than based on, creating virtual IP addresses. And then again, from the table, it shows all the interfaces and how the traffic is actually flowing and what's up and what's down from each of those spokes. Other features, the ability to create groups. Again, groups can be assigned firmwares, they can be assigned configuration files, and then simply add the device into it. And then when the device comes online and touches the internet, it'll push and make sure that it has all the firmware and configurations that you've told it to. And again, you can break apart and manage and look at the different groups to see, a lot of the similar stuff we were talking about regarding the overview. Alerts is a configurable function. Again, you can go in, we have a plethora of different rules, and then you can add them to groups. And then this is just alerts for on the platform. So like under your notifications or on the app. There's also the ability on the devices to have it sending email alerts or email messages to the platform as well, if you want different priorities in queue. Again, you can add in different users and give them different privileges. And as a network admin, you can go in and create their username. It doesn't have to be their email. You can create it as you like, give them the role, and you as the network admin can assign them their password. And then of course your logs, records and tasks, software firmware updates, traditional network management functionality, activity logs, what's been happening, who's been doing what over what time frame or what user, and then who's been logging in and when and from where. Additionally, like I said, you can get the mobile app, just simply scan the QR code, download it. And if you want to look at the manual, the product manual can be accessed just by clicking on that help button. And then that has pretty much all the details on how to use the platform. All right, Brian, I know that was a little longer than planned, but I think I got it all out.
The good news is it was worth the extra innings on there, and we're at 227 on this. We've had a handful of questions that have been specifically to me. I've been pulling in Godwin Way, our FAE. If you do not know Godwin, he is our internal rock star FAE. You can reach him at godwin.way, W-E-Y, at InHandNetworks.com. So if you have specific questions or even want to see a demo on your side, you are more than welcome to reach out to Godwin specifically, and he can show you this. So, and we had a handful that says everything looks great, solid. Congrats, guys. Thank you. Thank you for your time, guys. We really do appreciate you giving this a little bit extra time. The attendance was higher than expected, and people stayed longer than expected. So we're hoping this is a positive thing. We do encourage your questions, your feedback, obviously with this being brand new to us as a brand new device, but also too on the cloud side of things. And many FAEs, solution engineers, MSAs, regional sales directors client partners have given a lot of input to creating this. So we really hope that you guys feel honored and hopefully can really maximize the benefit of this product and knowing that your feedback is important. So we have knocked this out here under an hour. And Ken, thank you again for your time and for the details here. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.